Welcome to our podcast, Parenting by the Pint. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, Minivan Mafia. Lauryn and I are longtime friends from Chicagoland that love getting together to chat about life, kids, family, and beer.
Each week, we'll feature a brewery and sample at least 2 of their beers.
We'll also discuss a variety of topics ranging from parenting, pop culture, travel, marriage, and just about anything else that comes to mind.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
Hey, Lauryn.
We're back again. We're going on a road trip this time. We're going to talk about and drink Grand Canyon Brewing.
Yeah.
In honor of my spring break trip with the family.
Where'd you go?
The Grand Canyon. I know.
My goodness.
Crazy, right?
That's crazy. What a coincidence.
Yes. So we're going to let's drink the Pilsner first.
Okay.
The American Pilsner. So I'm going to open this, and then I'll talk a little bit about Grand Canyon Brewing. I will say that I didn't actually go to Grand Canyon Brewing, even though there are like 4 different locations, and we drove by a couple of them. So, random story to start. So we're driving from the Grand Canyon down to the Phoenix area for the second half of our spring break trip.
Okay.
And we stop in Williams, Arizona, which is where Grand Canyon Brewing started. It's a little town just directly south of Grand Canyon National Park, the South Rim.
Okay.
There's literally one road that you can go out of the Grand Canyon and it just goes south. And when it stops and it tees, that's Williams. So,
all right.
Williams, south of the Grand Canyon. Tiny town, not a whole lot going on there. We stopped for lunch at this little Mexican restaurant. It was very good.
Awesome.
And so I'm going to pay, and they have a bunch of beer in their cooler to sell to go. And I was like, that looks good. Can I just buy this to take? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. Here, you get 20% off or some percentage off if you pay me with cash. And I was like, all right, cool.
I got cash.
So I bought a couple cans of Grand Canyon Brewing beer
and here we
at
are.
the Mexican restaurant in Williams, Arizona.
Love it.
And
that
is how we have obtained the beer that we're drinking now.
Well, in the hope that I would not forget to say it later, based on our conversation for tonight, I want to say this now.
Yes.
And then we'll circle back, and you can tell me about Grand Canyon Brewing, but and we can taste this lovely beer. When my husband and I were researching the trip we're going on over the summer, he was very interested in looking for like brew pubs and things like that maybe have food, but also maybe give us a chance to try some beer.
Sure, local, unique,
visiting. And he found a place near our Airbnb that had microphone brewing on tap.
Holy cow.
And I'm going to say it because, I don't want to hold you in suspense. We're going to Italy.
Yeah, exactly.
And he found a place in Rome,
that
Italy.
That
has microphone brewing
crazy.
on tap, which is a brewery in Elk
Grove
Grove
Village,
Illinois.
Yes.
That is not massive.
How on earth did that make it all the
I
way
know.
to Rome?
I've been meaning to send them a Facebook message.
You literally
and be like, can you
should be
explain
like,
to me
yes.
why you're on tap at this bar?
You
family
honestly
there?
should. Like, I really am
probably
curious.
respond and be like, oh yeah, we do.
Yeah.
That's actually my cousin.
We need a follow up. So
yeah.
But yeah, so no, this was just at the Mexican restaurant.
That's
pretty how not a bottle shop, not anything. Mexican restaurant. That's how I got my beer.
Well,
so
let's try this Pilsner.
We're gonna drink some Pilsner.
Smells like a Pilsner.
And that it does.
Woo!
It tastes like a Pilsner, but it's got... So here's the thing. There's some Pilsners that are light and bland, and then there's some that are flavorful. This one, to me, is more flavorful.
Absolutely. I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's just the flavor in a Pilsner can be so subtle. And so when you get one that just like
Yeah.
kind of awakens the senses a little bit. And, it's not an elaborate, complicated flavored beer, but it's of course, it's crisp and clean, and it checks all the boxes that every Pilsner would check, a good Pilsner would check.
Right.
But it's just got that little bit of it's
got that extra body to it. Yeah.
Malty, creamy, but light flavor.
It's got a great maltiness to it.
Yeah.
It's got it kind of melts in your mouth, that malty flavor to it. It's a really good, solid Pilsner. So
absolutely. I very much enjoy it. Tell me about Grand Canyon Brewing.
All right. Grand Canyon Brewing is actually a veteran-owned brewery.
Okay.
So John and his brothers opened it in 2007. John got out of the U.S. Navy in 2006. Moved to Williams, Arizona, which was their family kind of vacation area when they were kids. So his brothers already had actually been there. They opened a souvenir shop. It was a trading post store. He actually purchased... I think 2000, I don't remember what year it was, maybe right after he got out of the Navy, he purchased Cruiser's Route 66 Cafe, and his brothers had already owned, it was called White Horse Trading Post, so it was a store and a cafe that their family owned, and in 2007, him and his brothers decided they were going to start brewing, and founded Grand Canyon Brewing. So it's been around for quite a while now. Nice. And they've done well. They started in Williams. In 2017 they expanded and relocated just a mile down the road to a larger complex, a 5-acre compound with a 40-barrel brew house, new canning line. It was a decade later. So they figured out what they couldn't do. When they first started brewing, they actually only sold their beer at their store and at their cafe. So they were kind of the first year were just experimenting with what worked and what didn't work. And since they already had the means to distribute there locally, they gave it a shot to see what would work. And from there, then they figured out what would work and expanded. So in 2017, they expanded. Shortly after that, they actually expanded into distilling. So they also distill now spirits, whiskeys. They started with using just 100% Arizona sourced grains to do that. They make vodka, rum, gin, whiskey, and now, not back then, but now they do ready to drink kind of canned cocktails like a lot of other places are doing. Yeah. So then in 2019 they opened a second location in Flagstaff with another barrel house that was much smaller, so 5-barrel brew house to make small batch type beers. So then they had multiple locations. 2022, they opened another location in Page, Arizona. If you're in that area, it's northeast of the main Grand Canyon National Park, but a lot of people know Page because of Horseshoe Bend, which is a super famous kind of area. If you saw a picture of it, you would probably recognize it. But they bought an old firehouse and converted it into a brew house in Page. And they actually used the original brewing system from their first Williams location there. So recycling.
That's cool.
They're also still working on expanding their Flagstaff location, but then they opened a 4th location in Kingman, Arizona, which is just west of Williams. They have a brew pub there. They actually bought what was already a brewery that was just relocating, and I really want to visit this brewery because it's called the Rickety Cricket, and I kind of love the name. So if I'm ever back out that way, I'm totally trying there. But they just relocated, so they didn't close, but they did buy the facility that they were using in Kingman. So now and that was in 2023. Like that opened in like January or February, so it was only a couple months ago. So now they have 4 locations, which is kind of crazy. They use or try to use local retailers and sources, and they're really into, which totally makes sense, trying to get kind of in the big touristy areas. Which again,
That does make sense.
Yeah. They also have a Grand Canyon Brewing cabin, an Airbnb that's on the property right next to the brewery that if you want you can rent and stay right on site. And yeah, so pretty cool. Then one of the beers we're gonna drink, the next beer we're gonna drink actually, later in the podcast, is a beer that makes up 50% of their entire beer production in a year. Yeah, and they make about a dozen different beers every year along with their spirits. And this particular beer makes up 50% of their production.
That's
crazy, right?
A high number. Yeah.
Especially for a craft brewery that makes like other things and it's not just like Miller Lite, Bud Light. Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, they have like a dozen different beers.
A dozen or more different beers a year that they're producing.
50% of
half of
their
them
production is this beer. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So anyways, so I haven't made it there. There's lots of opportunities if you're in Arizona to make it there. This is not distributed widely. So you're going to get it in like Wyoming, Arizona, Nevada.
That's kind of it.
Yeah, they were one of the first breweries to actually expand into the Nevada area from there. But you're not going to get it here. So you got to go out west to find it. But if you're in Arizona, which is a very popular place to travel to, give them a shot. And you got four different locations that you can try. So
sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So and this Pilsner is very tasty.
Yeah. So. I'm really enjoying this and I will enjoy drinking it while we talk about summer plans.
Yes.
Which is perfect because this is summer. We're getting
summery. The weather's nice. I was just in Arizona and we were swimming because it was 80.
Ugh.
So, not in the Grand Canyon. In the Grand Canyon, it was like 23 degrees. But
that's crazy.
When you get south, it was nice. Yeah, I will say the Grand Canyon was great. We put forth a lot of planning into our vacation. It was a very busy week. And I feel like a lot of planning goes into family vacations.
That is exactly the perfect segue for what I would like to discuss because I proposed this topic and I know we always kind of touch on our seasonal plans in an episode here and there,
What's next?
Approximately 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And I have been looking forward to talking about summer plans because I'm excited about this summer.
Sure.
We actually have plans, which we didn't really have any spring plans, but it's because our summer plans are so elaborate.
Massive. Yeah, exactly.
But you touched on that you guys were very busy and that you made a lot of plans, and that's what I'm going to get at. So let me start out by saying that we are going on a big European vacation this summer. We are going to fly from Chicago. We're going to spend one night in Reykjavik, Iceland, and do a little bit of driving around, see a volcano.
You're going to preview for when we go.
I'm going to get the feel for
kids.
things.
Yes.
So that Lauryn and I can plan our ladies' trip, where we just go from hot spring to hot spring and drink beer.
Yeah, that's literally what we're going to do.
But I'll get a few glances at things like that and can report back.
I like it.
With hopefully a positive review. So yes, one night in Reykjavik. And then we are going to continue our trip over to Rome, Italy, and then move to Florence, go to Bologna, and then we're going to jump on an airplane and fly to Naxos, Greece, which is an island in the Aegean with all those other cool little Greek islands.
Yep.
And then we're going to finish up in Athens and head home, exhausted after 17 days.
You will be exhausted.
That is what I keep hearing from people. I refuse to be concerned about it.
I think you'll be okay. We were gone even just domestic for 10 days. And I posted all of our pictures on Facebook over the last couple of days. And I went back through them and listed all of the different places we went to. And I was like, okay, like we flew into Phoenix and then drove the 3.5 hours in a snowstorm to the Grand Canyon. It was snowing directly at me, like whiteout conditions. At 9:00 at night in the pitch black. It was fantastic. We made it safely.
Sounds like a vacation.
We did the Grand Canyon. We did a helicopter tour over the Grand Canyon. We headed south. We went to Montezuma's Castle. We did a whole bunch of things outside. We went to a spring training game, the zoo, the science center, the butterfly place, rescue, I don't know, conservatory thing.
Yeah, conservatory. I think that's right.
We went up we did the Saguaro Desert tour and Tortilla Flats and Canyon Lake and Superstition Mountains, and like literally just kept listing all these things. I'm like, holy crap, we did a lot of things. And in the middle of that, we also flew to California and back for the wedding. So I was like, we just did stuff. There was a lot of stuff. And that was just here.
Yeah.
So like going to Europe, I feel like there's just going to be like so many things.
Well, and that's
see.
really kind of where I'm at right now. So we're about 2 months away
from
leaving, just a hair over 2 months. And I'm struggling with how much I want to plan versus how much I want to have some freedom. Because whether you've been to Rome before or not, you do realize that there are what I would consider essential
things you can't go to Rome and not see the Colosseum
sites
or the Vatican.
Yes, you cannot go to Rome and not go to the Colosseum.
Like
you absolutely must, and you must go inside. You can't just see it
from the outside.
You have to go inside and see where the gladiators fought.
I would agree with that, and having been to Rome, I would agree with that.
Right.
So,
well, like I said, whether you've been there before or not, there is just like a small list.
Yes.
And
you
place
can
like
skip
Rome,
the
that
forum.
list is
you don't
bigger.
need to go there.
Yeah, no, everybody always says that. Although I did discover there is a cat sanctuary in the forum.
Sweet. I've been to the forum. We did it, but if you're only going once and you need to like hit the highlights,
you could skip the forum.
You have to go to the Colosseum.
Yeah.
That's not negotiable. Yeah.
So where I'm at currently is whether or not, we want to have a little bit more of formal like tours of places versus do we want to do like an audio tour of some things? Do we want to just kind of walk around and learn about some stuff?
Yeah.
I could read about some things and just talk about it if we're walking around town, for example. And, another factor to consider is how expensive tours are.
Yeah.
Even small groups, even not just a private tour, even small group tours are hundreds of dollars.
And they're by person usually.
And it's per person.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to justify doing that, let's say, once a day.
Yeah.
On a 17-day trip. And even take out a couple of travel days in there and say 2 weeks.
Yeah.
14 days of $400 tours. I don't have that. I did not insure the trip for that much.
Not the budget.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Like, so on top of everything else that, food and tickets to things and hotels and
for sure.
Transportation.
Everything. And just the trains and bus or whatever you're going to take when you get places. Like
exactly.
All those also, I think that this would depend on whether you're with family or with children. So my children would do better with shorter tours. Like you could go on a 5-hour Vatican tour if you wanted to. There's zero chance of us ever doing that.
Right. No, I would not do that.
But the Colosseum is something that is, to me, interesting. And also sometimes you can get into areas that you can't get into in the public if you do tours. So there's so many factors of like what benefits do you get with a tour company and how long is this tour going to be?
Yes. So my perspective has been no tours over 2 hours long.
I would totally be on board with that. Yeah.
And the number of tours that we are doing is pretty minimal. We are touring the Vatican. We are going to the Vatican Museum, which is a lot of art. Yeah. If you've never been there, and I am not versed well enough to walk around and point to things and talk to my kids about how these tapestries are significant because blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen for me. So a tour of the Vatican Museum has value, and if it doesn't take 4.5 hours, it will be enjoyable.
We did a tour. We did with Angel Tours. I feel like the Vatican tours, the good thing about them is you could spend 2 days walking around.
Yes.
But with the tour, in theory, you would hit the most highlights.
Yes.
So, like, you could walk around a room for an hour because there's stuff everywhere.
Absolutely.
And
it's like a hoarder's house.
No idea what is the most significant things to look at unless you had someone being like, look at this painting in this room, and then
why...
we're going to go next door.
And we intentionally booked a family-friendly, like child-centered tour to the Vatican Museum.
Yeah.
So I didn't, sorry, that was my cat exploding. He's fine. I didn't do that with many things.
Sure.
But in that case I did because it is historically and culturally and artistically significant, and I wanted them to be able to appreciate it and understand it and not get bored with it.
Yes.
Whereas, there's some other elements, and you mentioned the Colosseum, and that is actually where my problem lies.
Okay.
So the Colosseum is tricky. It's not hard to get tickets. It's not even hard to get those skip the line tickets, which is what everybody tries to do with everything, which I think just creates a different line. But we'll get there.
You're still in a line.
Yeah.
It's just a
my
shorter
line just
line.
moves faster.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure it does. Here's the problem. The way that the Colosseum works is there is basically the Colosseum people. They sell the tickets to enter the Colosseum. Tour companies and everybody else can buy tickets on your behalf and can take you inside, and they can give you a tour of the Colosseum. There's different levels of the Colosseum. They are letting people into the underground areas, which they didn't used to do, which is supposed to be really interesting. I have never been down there.
I've never been down there, yeah. They weren't
so I don't know when
I was there.
Yeah, I don't know when that started, but it was after I have last been there. And it's supposed to be very cool.
Okay.
However, to get a tour that will take you into the underground area, you're looking at spending like $150 a person. They're very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Unless you can get tickets for the tour that the Colosseum has. The actual Colosseum tour is like $30 a person, and kids are free.
Oh, nice.
Kids are free to enter the Colosseum, and the tour for the kids is like $10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great, right?
If you can get that. Yeah.
It's impossible to get, and not because they sell out right away, because I am a wizard. I can get tickets to anything.
Yeah.
I can do anything. I have never failed.
Yeah.
Okay? If it is not a lottery where you are randomly pulling names out of a hat, I will get tickets to the thing I want to go to.
Fair.
That is how I am. It is my area.
Yes.
That's not the problem. The problem is that they make the tickets available at random times that have no logic or sense at all. Sometimes it's 30 days before your date. Sometimes it's 30 days before your date to the hour of the tour that you want. Sometimes it's 30 days before your date, but like 7 hours after your tour, which would be the middle of the night in Italy.
Which makes absolutely no sense.
But they just opened up a bunch of tickets to the 3 o'clock tour 30 days from now. But it's 11 o'clock at night in Italy. Who is doing this? What is happening on this website? I can't figure it out. I've been stalking it because I'm not at 30 days. I got another 30.
Yeah, to even get
figure
to
it
that
out.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes they open up a bunch of tickets like 4 days before. I'm looking at the calendar today, and there's a bunch of tours for April 17th. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I don't want to wait until 4 days before to buy my tickets to the Colosseum.
No, I get that. Yeah. I will say that when
problem.
we were there, we did not book with a tour company.
Yeah.
We actually wound up getting a tour the day of because they had a bunch of extra tickets that they just willy-nilly
That
let it happen.
is very interesting.
And so we just went. The underground was not open, but everything else we saw. And so we just... Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying what we did because we had already booked a tour for the Vatican, which I thought was important because otherwise we would be wandering around like aimless people. And the Colosseum, we were like, you know what? We're just going to see what happens. And we're going to go no matter what. But they happen to have tours
really
available.
Cool.
And so we just booked it with them. But I didn't want to spend the $100+ with a tour company for it.
That's brilliant. I think that's actually kind of a genius idea. My thought process was, now just buying the tickets from the Colosseum website, still not straightforward, still not super easy.
Yeah.
Not as bad.
But you can
it's
figure
feasible because they sell quite a lot of them.
Yes.
But so possibly what I can do, what I've decided I'm going to do is at the 30-day mark, if tours do not appear on the day that I would like to go, and I have a little bit of leeway with the days that we're in Rome.
Because you're going to be there multiple days.
Yeah. If they do not appear within a day or two of the 30-day mark, I will just buy regular tickets to the Coliseum. And
we also looked into an audio tour.
Well,
so like Rick Steves and stuff and other things have audio tours that you can do, which was our backup, I guess. But we wound up just able to.
That's my backup plan, is to do an audio tour of the Coliseum. We're also planning, so we're going to move on to Florence after Rome, and we're planning to go to the Galleria dell'Accademia, which is where the David is.
Yeah, we went there too. Yeah.
And we will almost definitely do the audio tour
that's
there.
All we did
because
there.
I know the kids aren't going to last long at that place. But I want them to learn as much about David as possible. Yeah. And the tour, I already looked at it. It's like 20 minutes of this guy talking about David.
Yeah, we just literally did that. That's all we did when we went there. There were a couple other things we did when we... I mean, Florence is cool. Like, you got to go to the Duomo and, like, do the things. And, but the tour, of there... We were like, we don't really need to see anything else. We walked around a little, but we're like... Especially if I was with the kids... There's so much art everywhere.
There's an incredible museum in Florence called the Uffizi that has a ton of Renaissance art, sculptures, paintings, everything. My kids would never survive that place.
No, because they'd be bored out of their mind. Yeah. As adults, very interesting, especially if you appreciate.
Well, sure, because
art.
you could walk through a room where you're looking at a time period and you could be like, this is an interesting painting style, and then you walk into the next room and you see the next time period and you can see the difference. And as an adult, you can have a conversation with another adult about what you learned.
But the kids don't care.
Kids don't do that. They're not going to do that, especially when I already dragged them to the Vatican Museum, which I have to take them to.
You got to highlight the things that they will recall and that it will have an impact, but not. That's what that's the thing too. Like when we are all of our vacations, now that we've learned how to do them better, we usually plan for one concrete thing that we're going to do each day.
That's kind of where
and then everything else, and even some days we just say these are some things we could do today. Doesn't mean we're going to, but we could. And so the things that we definitely want to do are the things we book and we make tickets for, buy tickets for, plan in advance, tours, etc.
Yeah.
And then here's the list of, we're going to wake up today and say, or figure out yesterday, like, what are we doing tomorrow?
Sure.
And be like, we can be a little bit more flexible with some days. Because even in the middle of the trip, was a day that our kids were like, we don't want to do anything. Like, we just need a day to, like, relax and, like, we can go for a walk or go eat or hang out or sit at the park, but we don't want to listen to anyone else tell us about things or read anything. So you need some of that kind of in between.
Built a little bit of that into kind of each day even. Like you said, there's we booked a Vatican tour, so we have to go to the Vatican that specific day, right?
Sure.
We will buy tickets for the Coliseum, and they will be for a particular day. They won't be on the same day, by the way.
No, God, no, you can't do that.
We will not go to those two things on the same day.
Yeah.
That would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Mike really wants to go to the Appian Way and see the aqueducts, which is kind of like a big national state park I guess you could say. A little bit on the outskirts of Rome. That's just like walking around.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of mornings where we don't have anything planned. Whatever morning seems to be the nicest.
Yeah.
We will go. It's a short cab ride.
Yeah.
We'll go over there. We'll walk around for as long as we feel like walking around. We'll check out the aqueducts, which are supposed to be cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll just go back to the Airbnb and we'll have lunch.
Yeah.
And then we'll
that's good. Yeah.
go walk to the fountain, or we'll, and we just... We do have a little bit of that kind of filled in. I would say the only day that is probably like where there's no flexibility is our time in Florence is really short. We have the day we arrive, we have one day in Florence, and then we have the day we leave.
You don't really need a ton of time in Florence.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people that are listening that are offended by that statement because some people believe Florence is like the best city in Italy.
But with kids...
There's
just
not
not
for kids.
a lot.
It's not.
And,
There's
like,
not enough cool architecture and
Right.
a lot of
That's
Renaissance
the thing.
art.
Like, and after the
And
kids
wine.
see so many of those things, they're not gonna care
Yeah.
anymore. So that's the problem. Like, we went to an amusement park in the middle of our trip because we were like, the kids just need to do something fun and mindless for a day.
Yeah. Well, and we're moving from Florence to Bologna, which
Yeah.
is more central Italy. And our time in Bologna, we are staying in an agriturismo, which is like a farm resort.
Yeah, interesting.
Sort of,
Okay.
if that's what you wanted me to translate it into.
Yeah.
And it's got a pool and a hot
perfect.
tub. And it's actually, the one that we're staying at is a vineyard. So they have
nice.
wine tastings and they have a restaurant and you can eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner there.
Cool. That's
so
actually
we
really
could
nice.
hypothetically literally just stay there for 3
and
days.
they could swim
and
and,
do
they
nothing.
can just relax and
We will.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to a national park nearby. They have an area where you can like swim by a waterfall,
Cool.
and it's
Yeah.
an easy hike. And we might. One thing that Mike and I have been talking about is, in Italy they call them cheese factories. They're not dairies. They're not whatever. They're called cheese factories. Literally in Italian, that's what it translates to. Cheese factory, where they make Parmigiano Reggiano, which is what they make in Emilia Romagna, which is the area that Bologna is in. And I was learning about it. And of course, every single tour of the cheese factory ends in a
with
tasting of cheese.
Yes, of course.
And
of course.
that region is also the region that makes prosciutto and
Which is-
balsamic vinegar.
You literally just have a meal of cheese and prosciutto.
Yes.
Like, that's
So the tastings at these places
Yeah.
are cheese and prosciutto and balsamic and bread.
that's
and
all I need for food.
Yeah. So I was like, I think we should go to the cheese factory. And my little one was like, can we just eat the cheese? I don't want to learn about the cheese. And I was like, no.
Yeah, that's
We're
not how
going to
these
learn
work.
about the cheese. Because it's actually a very reasonably priced thing to visit.
Even better, yeah.
And the tour is like 40 minutes.
Oh, so
It's like
it's manageable. Yeah.
phase 1 of making cheese, phase 2 of making cheese, phase 3 of making cheese. Let's
eat the cheese. That sounds perfect.
And then you're done.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. I mean, we went on tours at vineyards when we were in
yeah.
Napa. Those tours, which were pretty simple and not elaborately long, were longer than this tour is.
So the cheese tour should be fine.
Yes. My husband was very excited. I won't say he gets that way about many things, but he was like, oh, yeah, let's go to the cheese factory.
So that also brings me to a thought on just vacation planning in general. So different families that I've talked to handle this differently, but there are ultimately people who do not enjoy the same things going on the same trip.
Yeah.
And how you handle, like, does everybody get to pick something like a day or something that they're interested in doing? In Europe, it's a little different because there's not as many different things as there are domestically. And there are things that you're like, well, you're here, you have to see. But like a U.S. trip, you know, like my son, he was Googling places he wanted to see in Arizona or eat at or do things. And, you know, like they got, you know, we would ask them, well, what do you want to do of this list? Or what does your sister want to do?
Yeah, sure.
And then the other question I was talking to my boss, because he was on vacation the same week I was actually, was when they went somewhere else. They went to Tennessee, but their whole family didn't do every day together. So like there was a day that his wife and his daughter were like, we want to go do this. And he was like, I'm going to stay home. You know, we don't generally do that.
Split up.
But you could, if there's things that you're like, this kid wants to go do this, the other kid doesn't care.
Well,
you know,
that is something that could happen with the day that we talked about maybe going to the waterfall and going hiking. I'm not like super into
sold
that
on that.
idea.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying I won't do it. I
But the
certainly won't
outdoor
be left
activities-
by myself.
Sure,
okay.
yeah.
But because we've also agreed that everyone has a buddy and that you will always be with your buddy. No one's going to ever be by themselves. While there have been occasions where, let's say hypothetically, I have when we've gone to Disney, we've allowed the kids to run down the hall and go into my parents' room and hang out.
Yeah.
We won't be doing stuff like that.
Right.
My kids will be with me at all times.
Yes.
I will not go to the rooftop bar even without them.
Yeah.
I will grab a glass of wine and come back to the room.
Yep.
And my husband will stay in the room.
Yeah, your kids will never be without a parent.
No one will ever be alone.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that will never happen.
But if you and your youngest
don't feel like going on the hike, maybe it's too hot, maybe we got bit by bugs the night before, whatever, we don't feel like it.
Whatever the reason is, you don't
stay
feel like
in. We're
you
going
just want to go eat gelato instead. It's fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one other thing that we're going to do near Bologna is that is where Lamborghini and Ferrari are.
Oh, my kids, the twins
and
would get a kick out of
Ducati.
there.
Ducati is also there.
Okay.
So they got everything.
Yep.
And we are probably going to go to Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
It's the closest to the train station, and we're going to maybe take the train there. So I think that convenience-wise is going to work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the kids are really going to love that. And it's just a museum. We're not going to do a tour.
Sure.
We're not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to walk around and look at cool cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole thing. They got some history stuff about Ferrari, but if you don't want to read the panel, I'm not going to force you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all good.
Yep.
And then we moved to Naxos, which is the island, and it is literally like we don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
we're there for 4 nights.
Yeah.
If you don't want to leave the beach / hotel,
right.
we don't have to. We just have to eat at some point.
Yeah.
And we're renting a car, and since it's an island and it's so small, we're like, well, let's find the best places to eat on this entire island and go to those.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of sites here and there, although that's another occasion where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to plan a whole lot because
you could wing that more so than other places.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever researched other places in Europe that are not Italy, but when you do, sometimes they say stuff like, oh, while you're here in Valencia, Spain, you can see our cool Roman ruins. And I'm just like, yeah, I saw those in Rome. It's not that I don't want to see your ruins, you guys.
Right, yeah. But we've done this.
Yeah.
So what else you got for me? Yeah.
While I would enjoy seeing some things on the island, if there's comparable versions of that
you've already
in
been to
Athens later in the trip, I don't know if I need to see it on the island.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah.
So we're hopefully going to have some low-key, and that would also be an opportunity for people to kind to divide and conquer, because we'll have the car. So if
people
Mike
want to stay by the beach
and Abraham want to go walk some towns, and me and my oldest want to hang out at the beach, or vice versa, we can do that.
Yeah. So we're not doing a big trip in the summer. I mean, we do a handful of camping trips every year, so we will do that. And then we are doing some sort of road trip in August, and it will probably be for 8 days ish, 8 or 9 days.
Cool.
So we're gonna go east this time instead of west. So we're gonna do Ohio and Pennsylvania.
You're gonna go to Hocking Hills?
Possibly. It's a distinct possibility on the list.
They've got, you'll probably bring your camper, but they have cool tree houses there.
Yeah, we are going to bring the camper.
But Hocking Hills is really cool. That was on Mike's road trip back with the car.
Oh, okay, cool. So there's a couple places in Ohio that we might stop, and then we're going to make our way out to Hershey. So we're going to do Hershey, Pennsylvania, and then there's a couple other things. There's a handful of things in Pennsylvania to do and see. So we're in the midst of just even starting to think about it.
That sounds really cool.
When we do, we usually ask the twins to be like, all right, find something you guys want to do, and we'll add it to the list one of the days.
Yeah.
So there's this not cheese, but it's ice cream factory. So you go through the process of how to make ice cream, and then you make your own ice cream flavor.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Eat that. So they're like, we want to do that. And I was like, yep, totally on board for this.
Yeah. They have one of those actually in Bologna. They have a gelato museum.
Yes.
And it's the same idea. But the days that the museum is open is completely random.
Oh.
And so in the scheme of things, I don't believe that it's going to work out for us. Because I'm like, it's like open from 10 to 1 on the day we arrive, but we get there at 12:30.
Yeah, it's not going to work out.
We're not going.
So we're literally at the beginning stages of planning our end of summer vacation. So we will see how that goes, but there are different ways to to do things. Like I said, you was talking to my boss and he's like, oh yeah, no, we split up a number of times and they have 3 kids just like we do. And they're like, the oldest wanted to do this. So they did, but we didn't. Or vice versa. The youngest wanted to, but the oldest didn't have an interest. You know, and there's a pretty big age difference for them. So that makes a little bit more sense. But, you know, my oldest might not have the patience to do some of the things that my the twins do.
You've talked before about how he doesn't do well with like multiple stops in a day type activities. Where if you take him from A to B to C to D, that by D he's just done. Like we need to go.
I will say he did fantastic.
That's awesome
on spring break. Not a single like a couple times he was like, go home. And I was like, I know, dude, but just like give me some time. And no like meltdowns, no tantrums.
Wonderful.
Nothing. So we had a really pleasant trip.
Good.
Like
that's my chief concern.
Yeah. And with
my trip.
Stupid plane. So like we pre-boarded with him with our family. And so we were on the plane and we're just going to Arizona. But then we had to wait for everybody to board, which was like a good 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we went out to the tarmac and they had to de-ice the plane for another 15 minutes.
Oof.
And then with the headwinds, it was a 4-hour flight. So we were on that plane for over 5 hours.
Oof.
Just on the way there, which I know you're flying to Europe. But it's only like 2 hours more than that.
My flight from Chicago to Reykjavik is 6 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah. We were on our plane
and it's at night,
for
so
5 hours at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is the worst time to fly because then they're hungry halfway through.
Yeah.
I literally went and I got Billy Goat cheeseburgers to bring on the plane with us because I'm like, they're going to be hungry in an hour. Like, we need to feed you.
We just talked about that meal plan for the day we leave and how we're going to get to the airport because you have to go through customs and everything.
Yeah.
How we're going to get to the airport so early that we're going to probably have dinner at the airport.
Which makes sense, yeah.
And how we're going to address that. Or, you can bring sandwiches. We might bring sandwiches for the kids because they kind of prefer that sometimes anyway.
Yeah,
or do we want to make time to, are we going to have time for a meal? Do we want to do that? They're probably not serving a meal on the plane.
Right.
Maybe breakfast.
Right, but not, your options are limited there. So anyway, that's why I was like, we could probably fly to Europe at this point because he did fine. He didn't even need to get up.
That's wonderful.
He was totally fine, occupied the whole time, like no issues whatsoever. So knock on wood, things went well. All right, so we're going to drink our last beer. This is a prickly pear wheat ale. This makes up 50% of their production. Which is crazy. Prickly pear comes from a type of cactus, and it's not found everywhere, which is why it's unique.
Wow.
This tastes like... So I've had prickly pear things while we were out there. It is not sweet like you would think. Like, we had prickly pear gelato, and it had a fruity-ish flavor, but it doesn't have a natural sweetness to it.
I like this.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Mm-hmm. We could have beer mosa'd this, and I would have been very intrigued.
This is...
Because this would have been a very subtle change from the Prosecco champagne flavor.
Yes.
But in a really good way, in my opinion.
It's a very mellow flavor to me.
Yeah.
People say, they sometimes say, it's a combination of, a raspberry and a watermelon, but without the sweetness.
Yeah. I was going to say kind of watermelon.
Yes.
A little bit watermelon.
So it's, but it comes from a certain cactus family. And so it's unique to certain areas of the world.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we went to a place called Tortilla Flat, which is the largest seller. It's a population of 7 of prickly pear gelato in the world. And we had never had it before, and we all had it because when you're there, you have to do that.
Right.
And we were all even the kids liked it, but it wasn't overly sweet, even in a gelato.
Yeah,
it's not super sugary. It's not super sweet, but it just gives a kind of unique flavor to it.
I like it. I like this flavor.
Mm-hmm. So I figured since this is half the production, we needed to at least drink this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good. It's a good tasting beer. It's like it's a very light beer with a little bit of fruity flavor, but it's
Yes.
not anywhere near overwhelming, and it's just very mellow to me. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I like it. This was a good one. Good job, Grand Canyon.
So yeah, anyways. All right, that's wrapping up our Grand Canyon trip and talking about our summer trips. So.
Yeah, well, and one last thing, Lauryn
Yes.
and I do have some summer plans together. We are going to go to Imagine Dragons and AJR in Milwaukee for Summerfest, and I'm really excited. I'm taking my little one, and she's taking twins.
Yep.
And he's very excited. He talks about it more than our big vacation, which is going to end like right before
the concert.
So we'll see where he's at at that point. But yeah, so we've got some plans together. Hopefully more than just that one thing. I'm sure we're going to
have to plan
at
some
least
things.
visit a brewery at some point, right?
We need to get on that. Like, we need to take at least like one overnight somewhere and pick a brewery somewhere.
Yes.
So we should
really like
figure out what that special
Which brewery in Madison
be.
do you want it to be?
I'm in. I'm totally in. It's a totally
I just wanna
drivable
go,
distance.
I like Madison. Let's talk about that.
Let's do it. We got lots of options. That we could just brewery hop there.
Yes.
We could take one night
Totally.
and we can just visit
Hit
a
a
few
few.
breweries. All right, I'm in.
Great.
We just got to put on the
Before
calendar.
the end of the summer.
All right.
Pinky
I like
swear.
it. Sounds good. I'm
Okay.
in. All right.
Catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to the latest musings from Parenting by the Pint.
Be sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you find your podcasts.
Have a great week and cheers to you all.